welcome you as our speaker this evening. She will be the guest speaker at Wenatchee Valley College Communications class. It will be this Thursday night, and she's practicing on us. That's the way to go. Here is the introduction as it will be presented on Thursday. Our guest speaker today is Kristina Stepper. Mrs. Stepper is a Wenatchee native, University of Washington graduate, business owner, consultant, community volunteer, and distinguished Toastmaster. We're very glad to have you in our group with all of those wonderful achievements. Over the course of her professional career and her tenure in Toastmasters, she has given more than 100 presentations, speaking before audiences ranging in size from a handful to 700 plus. She is convinced that the body language tips and techniques we're going to explore today are among the greatest assets a public speaker can have in his or her arsenal. Please join me in welcoming Mrs. Stepper.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. Body language is critically important in public speaking. Several years ago, I attended a conference that featured two keynote speakers. The morning speaker was introduced. He came up and started shaking hands with people around the room, making eye contact, and he was telling us about the history of the company, which I thought, this is going to be dry. But it wasn't. For an hour, he kept us on the fronts of our seats as he talked about this company that started in a garage, this guy and his friend, and before long it grew to where they actually were able to afford a storefront. And before much longer, it grew again, and they expanded more, and now they're in their own building, multi-story building. That this company has just escalated in growth. He told us about the personalities of the men who started the company, the integrity of the company, the products and the services that they made. And then at the end of his speech, he said, this afternoon, you get to hear about what's coming next. You get to hear about growth and what our strategies are for the future and what's going to happen. We left the auditorium on a high that we hadn't expected to experience from a historical speech. During lunch, we were all talking about what he had shared and thinking about what the afternoon session would entail. Time came for the afternoon session. We were all in our seats, eagerly waiting. The keynote speaker was introduced. She went up on stage, and here's what happened. You have to envision that there's an overhead projector here with a PowerPoint playing, and that she has a clicker in her hand. The future of the company is looking good. We're anticipating a 10% increase next year, and hope that it continues in the years to come. This went on for an hour. By 5 minutes into it, I was thinking, we needed the grocery store. You know, all those things that go through your mind when you're trying to stay awake. It was just, oh my. The only body language was the clicker. Body language is critical to our speeches. It communicates 4 things. It communicates sincerity. It communicates interest in your audience. It communicates belief in what you're sharing. And it communicates confidence and control. When what we see doesn't agree with what we hear, we generally believe what we see. Her body language made me really question the future of this company. If she's at the helm, they are in trouble. I need to get that morning guy back. Body language begins with good speaking posture. I would like to have you join me in practicing good speaking posture. If you could stand behind your chair. You may stay seated.
I'm practicing good posture while I'm sitting.
Good girl, good girl. We're going to start at our feet. Good posture starts with being well balanced. You want to be about hips width apart with your feet, not on your toes and not on your heels and not doing this either. Squarely balanced on your feet. Knees should be a little soft. You don't want people falling over. As you move on up your body posture, this part is critical to getting your air right. One thing that people tend to do is kind of sway their back out. If you tuck a bit so that you pull your hips forward just a bit, that helps pull your abs in, open your chest, so that you can get good air and you stay upright. Important when you're speaking. Moving on up to your shoulders, just let your hands fall naturally at your sides. Don't hunch, but drop your shoulders. Let them fall back just a little bit and relax. And then lengthen your neck a little bit. You tend to hunch like this sometimes, and that affects the way you talk too. So you want to have good height on your neck. Is that comfortable?
Mm-hmm.
Good. If it's not, you can adjust your feet just a little bit to get the width. But that's how you should always begin speaking. Get set and then begin speaking. Thank you. You can sit down. The more we practice that posture, that good posture, the more naturally it comes to us. It's a good thing to practice when you're standing in line at the grocery store or when you're visiting with a friend. Every opportunity you get to practice relaxing into that good speaking posture will help when you get into a speaking situation. Body language has 4 components: gesture, body movement, facial expressions, and eye contact. So we're going to look at each of those separately and dissect them a bit. The first is gestures. Gestures are specific movements that reinforce a verbal message. They're generally hands and arms movements. Gestures have 4 categories: descriptive, emphatic, suggestive, and prompting. What just happened in your mind?
2 or 4?
I thought of Nixon.
Thought of Nixon. When my actions don't reflect my words, it causes chaos in your head, doesn't it? She mean 2 or 4, which is 4 she said 4 and she's holding up to. And as a result, you probably missed everything I said after that about what those 4 things are. Body language reflecting appropriately is critically important. All right, there are 4. Descriptive, emphatic, suggestive, and prompting. Descriptive. Descriptive motions help our audience to understand comparisons, like size and shape. When I was demonstrating for you the way the first speaker talked about starting in a small garage and then moving to a storefront and eventually to a large building. That gave you a visual of the changes the company has gone through. When I held up 4 fingers, that's another descriptive sign. Emphatic. Emphatic says this is important. A clenched fist is a great symbol to get a point across when you want to be emphatic. It can be this kind of thing or even raised clenched fist. It says this is a critically important point in my talk. Suggestive is used when I want to draw an emotion from you or project an emotion. For instance, I can't figure out why it has to snow so much. Nobody asked me. That shrug, that open-handed, I give up kind of thing. That's an example of a suggestive gesture. Prompting. Prompting gestures help evoke a reaction, a response from your audience to that gesture. If I were to say, how many of you like driving in the dark? You're not raising your hand, you're supposed to be raising your hand. In a classroom, they will raise their hands. Or if I were to say, let's give Bobby a round of applause. Prompting gestures indicate to the audience what you want them to do in response. Getting comfortable with gestures is important, and the way we do that is to practice. Be natural. You don't want to create a speech, get in front of a mirror, and come up with all kinds of odd gestures that you wouldn't normally do. It'll be impossible to remember that when you get in front of an audience. Think of how you would express yourself in gestures if you were having a conversation one-on-one with a good friend. That's the type of gesture that will be most natural to you when you're giving a presentation in front of an audience. Suit the actions to the situation. If this were a large auditorium, I would need to use large gestures for the people in the back to be able to get the sense of what I'm trying to communicate with my gestures. Because this is an intimate gathering, if my gestures are kept here, that works fine, because you know what I'm trying to say. I don't have to get grand and have you know too much. Another important thing is to know your audience's culture. Some gestures that are common to us in our culture are offensive in other cultures. That's an important thing to know. You don't want to be offending your audience with your gestures. Just do a little research on who's going to be in the audience and take out anything that you think might be objectionable. Another good way to master the use of gestures is to watch how other people use them. This class yesterday had the opportunity to watch a couple Toastmasters international winners speak. They have the speakers video. Tomorrow you'll get to watch a couple more. As you watch that, watch their gestures. Watch how they move. Watch how they use gestures. It's a great way to learn gestures and to learn how to incorporate them in your own speaking. Number 2 is body movement. Body movement involves your use of the space on your stage. How you move around on your stage. One thing that we want to avoid is pacing back and forth. It's quite nice. While we're pacing back and forth. It's exhausting, isn't it? Set your place where you want to start. Get your posture. And stay in that place until it's reasonable within the context of your talk to move to another place. Going back again to that example of the morning keynote speaker, when he was talking about the advancements of the company, he moved across the stage to indicate how the company was advancing. And each time he would stop and reset and talk about the company in that spot. Another thing that I want you to notice about what I just did is, from your perspective, I went from left to right. That's how we read, that's how we think chronologically. As a speaker, you need to go from right to left. Otherwise, well, if you were going backwards, I guess, chronologically, you could do it the other way, but for the most part, you want to be thinking of how it looks to your audience and making it compatible with what is comfortable for them. The third component is facial expressions. Facial expressions are critically important to getting the thought behind our message across. This woman standing up here like this with her nose in her nose and clicking the clicker didn't give us any emotion to react to. What? It's being able to react to that emotion, being able to connect with the speaker that gives us an opportunity to move into their story with them. The fourth what word I used. Component
Eye contact.
is eye contact. Eye contact. Speakers' eyes are a critical part of their communication. Have you ever had a conversation with somebody who has on really dark sunglasses, or those reflective ones? I hate those. I am so busy trying to figure out where their eyes are behind there that I can hardly focus on the conversation. I just want to take them off. Eye contact is important for us when we're talking. It's important for your audience that you connect with each of them as you're speaking. It draws them in. It makes it personal. It makes a connection. That's critically important. The other thing eye contact does is it allows us to read reactions. If someone is looking puzzled, then you'll know that, and maybe you can expound on that point just a little bit more. If they're smiling, great. If they look like they're going to cry, maybe you need to redo your speech altogether. Depends on what it's on. Maybe you want them to cry. That Connection is so important. Eye contact is the most important of the four. There's no question. I don't realize my conclusion yet. There's no question that our gestures, movement, facial expressions, and especially eye contact all play key roles in communicating sincerity, interest in our audience, belief in what we're sharing, confidence and control. Another great thing about body language is it allows you the opportunity to get some of those nervous Nellies out. You're standing still and giving a speech. Sometimes knees start knocking, and you start shaking. We've all been there. But if you can move around a little bit and use gestures, it relaxes all of those joints and things. It just really makes speaking much easier. The contrast that I observed at the conference between the speaker who really used body language well and this woman like this with her heavenly book drove home to me in a huge way the importance of body language in speaking. Whether it's one-on-one, to a small group, or to a large crowd. I hope you will enjoy incorporating these powerful tools into your communication style.